The light falls like a blade over the cracked plain, the still air vibrating with heat and dust, the horizon dancing in mirages that promise water but deliver nothing. Amid this desert, a lioness moves forward with measured steps, ribs marked beneath her burnt fur, short and heavy breaths, eyes sweeping over every tuft of grass as if a miracle could sprout from it. Beside her, slightly behind, the cub stumbles on its own legs, still too soft for the hardness of the ground, seeking the shade of its mother's body as if she were shelter and answer to all the questions hunger asks. The wind brings only the scent of hot stone, dry bark, old feces and distance, and any scent of life seems to have fled with the last clouds, while vultures circle high above, drawing waiting orbits that announce that everything here is a countdown. The lioness stops, lifts her head, listens, and what she finds is the small sound of insects resisting, the fine crack of clay breaking under its own fissures, the lazy flap of tired birds' wings, and between one whisper and another, the quiet cry of the cub asking for milk that her body no longer produces as before. Every forward step is a calculation. Move ahead to search for prey, and risk leaving the little one alone for minutes, perhaps hours, or stay and conserve energy that doesn't exist, warming with her own body a life that depends on a food that never comes. The sun climbs, the ground returns fire, and the savannah seems to hold its breath to see who will give in first, the female fighting against her own stomach, or the world that enjoys imposing ancient trials. The cub tries to suckle, finds little, insists. The mother accepts the pain of sucking that yields nothing because hope needs rituals, and keeping the little one close is also a way of keeping him alive when nature's math pushes him away. Flies circle a distant carcass that she senses but cannot see, yet knows it's there by the pattern of the sky and the behavior of the vultures. Her mind gnaws on a memory of flesh, while her body refuses the urge to run, because running now means spending the last reserve and moving away from what matters most. So she chooses to cross the short shadow of a bush, lies down with her flank exposed, ears standing, eyes half closed, watching through the cracks, and turns her exhaustion into strategy, conserve, listen, decide at the exact moment. Because here, the difference between life and death fits in the time of a blink. The cub falls asleep exhausted, trembling lightly, and the lioness licks its fragile back, cleaning dust and anxiety, marking with the taste on her tongue the obligation to continue, while the silence that screams across the plain returns the same old question: how much is a mother worth when hunger bites her first, as the evening approaches with the promise of new shadows, new risks, and the same need to choose? Hunger is not just an emptiness in the stomach. It is a living presence that insinuates itself into the muscles and rises through the chest like a trapped animal trying to escape. In the lioness, it pulses with every heartbeat, demanding that the body move, that the snout track, that the claws feel the ground in a run. But the mind, trained by years of hunts and losses, knows that giving in to the call now means giving up what matters most. The cub sleeping at her feet, breathing fast and light, as if each breath were a silent battle against the heat. The hunting instinct calls for action. The mother's instinct demands waiting. And at this crossroads, every fiber of her body seems to be at war with itself. The sun, merciless, begins to bite at her exposed skin. The short fur burnt by time no longer offers the comfort it once did. The stomach, empty for days, contracts in a spasm that almost makes her stumble. The distant smell of fresh meat lingers in the air like a cruel promise, coming from somewhere beyond her sight. Perhaps a wounded animal, perhaps a carcass contested by others. The vultures moving slowly in the sky confirm that death is near, but the distance between knowing and conquering is too long a road for one who has a cub at the mercy of the world. She knows she could run, perhaps even arrive before the meat spoils completely. But who would protect the cub if she left? The little one stirs, lets out a low moan, and instinctively seeks the maternal belly. The milk, increasingly thin, barely moistens its mouth. The mother's gaze softens, but behind the tenderness there is calculation. Every minute without feeding reduces her strength to protect, and protecting is the first and last function of a mother in the savannah. Her ears turn to catch any noise in the surroundings, a soft step on the grass, the flutter of restless wings, the slow dragging of something approaching. Nothing immediate threatens, but peace in the savannah is a disguise. She knows the rhythm of danger. A second hunger spasm forces her to lift her head. Her nostrils flare, Her sense of smell tries to separate the scent of the hot earth from the aroma of life and death. The body wants to move forward, but she anchors herself to the ground, breathing deeply, as if holding back a river behind a fragile dam. In nature, giving into instinct is easy. The difficult part is denying it. And denying hunger's call for a predator is like refusing water when the lungs are burning. Everything in her screams to run, hunt, feed, but she remains still because she understands that there is something more urgent than her own survival. In the silence, only the sound of her heavy breathing and the light rustle of the cub blend with the environment. She licks her dry muzzle, closes her eyes for a moment, and remembers when the cub was born, still wet and blind, and how her first action was to lick him all over, warming him against her chest. In that moment, she made an invisible pact, anything to keep him alive. Now that pact is being cruelly tested, and the balance between the instinct to kill and the need to nurture is dangerously tilted toward the wrong side. But for now, she holds on. For now, she resists. The morning barely advances when a gust of wind brings a breath of hope. The smell is faint but unmistakable, living flesh, sweat, and fear. The lioness slowly raises her head, her ears turning like antennas to catch any sound that confirms the scent. The cub, unaware of the silent game of survival, remains lying, its legs still trembling from the little food. She takes a step, then another, and her body seems to come back to life with the possibility of killing. The back muscles tense, the tail moves like a pendulum, measuring the time of the approach. Ahead, between dry bushes, a young gnu grazes alone, separated from the herd, fragile, distracted, vulnerable. The huntress advances with almost mathematical precision, gliding across the ground like liquid shadow. Each step is silent, her eyes fixed on the prey, her snout cutting through the air to absorb every detail of the scent. The gnu lifts its head, chewing slowly, unaware of the danger. It is the moment she was waiting for, the instant when the distance is short enough for an explosion of strength, and the surprise is total. The lioness lowers her body almost to the ground, her front legs firm, the back muscles ready for the leap. And then, a sharp sound cuts through the air behind her. It is a weak mew, almost a broken call. The cub, awake, notices that the mother is not nearby and starts crawling in the wrong direction, exposing itself to any hidden predator. The lioness doesn't need to look to know. If she runs now, she will leave the little one alone and vulnerable. But the scent of flesh is right there, so close, and her stomach contracts in a painful warning. For a second, the instinct and responsibility face off like rivals ready to fight within her. The GNU takes a step forward, offering the perfect chance. The lioness's tail vibrates, almost as if the body is trying to betray the mind. But the sound of the cub returns, this time louder, filled with urgency and fear, and that is enough. The tension accumulated in her muscles dissolves in a slow retreat, her eyes still glued to the prey that moves away, unaware that it escaped by an invisible thread. The lioness retreats until she feels the cub with her body, and it immediately presses close, as if the touch were a safe harbor. Hunger screams, but it is muffled by the warm weight of the cub against her flank. The opportunity was lost, and she knows there may not be another so good so soon. But life in the savannah does not forgive mothers who fail in protection. It's better to stay hungry than risk returning to find only silence. And so, once again, the hunt ends before it even begins. Night falls like a thick cloak, filled with sounds the day never shows. The heat of the sun gives way to a cold that enters the joints and makes the lioness's short fur bristle. The cub sleeps curled against her belly, breathing quickly, making little sounds that resemble interrupted purring. The darkness, however, does not bring rest. It merely changes the type of threat. During the day, hunger is the enemy. At night, it is death that moves on silent paws, eyes glowing in the dark. The wind shifts direction and brings with it the acidic smell of hyenas. They are close, perhaps an entire group, and the lioness knows that alone she would not have the strength to face them if they decided to attack. The strategy, then, is the same that has saved generations: become an immovable wall, a wide body ready to bite, keeping the cub in the center of the circle formed by the front and back paws. She does not close her eyes. Staying still is not rest, it's vigilance, and vigilance is as exhausting as running. Far away, a guttural call echoes. It's a hyena warning the pack that something alive is nearby. The silence that follows is worse than the sound. Silence means they are getting closer. The lioness tilts her head slightly, listens, and perceives the dry crackle of thin branches a few meters away. Her eyes, accustomed to the dim light, catch two low silhouettes moving in a semicircle. It's a known tactic. One comes from the front, the other from the side, testing reactions. She growls low, a deep sound that vibrates in her chest and travels across the dry ground. The cub wakes up startled, trying to shrink even further. The hyenas stop for a moment, then take a few steps back. But they don't leave. They stay hidden, circling slowly, as if they had infinite time. The lioness maintains her stance, motionless, muscles tensed, ready to advance if any of them gets too close. The cold increases, and each extended minute drains a little more of the strength she no longer has. The hours drag on. The sky, once colorless, begins to gain a pale streak on the horizon, signaling that the day is returning. The hyenas, tired of waiting, disappear into the dry bush, and silence takes the place of the hunting sounds. But for the lioness, the price of the night is high. There was no rest, no food, only another battle won by resistance. And each of these battles brings her closer to a limit she knows she cannot cross, the limit where hunger becomes stronger than the instinct to protect. The sun has barely risen on the horizon when the lioness's scent picks up something that cuts through the dry air like a blade. The heavy metallic smell of old blood mixed with the decay of flesh. It's a carcass. It's not fresh. The bittersweet odor reveals that it has already been through the feast of others. But for one who has carried days of hunger, it might still be the difference between surviving another journey or falling right there. She lifts her snout, closes her eyes for a moment, and the wind confirms the direction. The cub, stumbling, follows closely behind, unaware that the smell means the chance of one more day. The approach is slow, but not by choice. Her body no longer responds with the same explosive energy as before. Each step draws energy from reserves that are running low, and the closer they get, the more the scene unfolds. The first sign is the noise, the dry, rhythmic beating of heavy wings, vultures, many fighting for space over what remains of the hunt. Then come the swift shadows of jackals, sliding between the bird's legs to rip chunks still resisting. It's a silent war, made of pushes, pecks, and teeth meeting in the middle of the way. The lioness stops a few meters away, evaluating. One misstep, and the attention would turn to her and the cub, who would have no defense. One step too quickly, and the jackals would turn as a group, attacking to protect the banquet they found first. She knows that, even hungry, these small scavengers aren't afraid to face a weakened predator. The strategy would be to wait, but hunger is not patient, and the cub is getting weaker, walking with its legs spread and head down. She takes 2 steps forward. The closest birds flap their wings and retreat, opening a temporary corridor to the mutilated body of a gnu. Part of the meat is already dry, dark, but there are still red, moist spots where larger teeth haven't reached. The instinct screams to move forward and sink her fangs, but the mother's instinct rises louder. If she moves closer, she will have to leave the cub standing, vulnerable, in the middle of territory contested by dozens of hungry mouths. The cub, unaware of the danger, takes a hesitant step toward the carcass. One vulture, irritated, turns toward him with wings spread, threatening. The lioness reacts with a short leap, growls, and drives the bird away. But she already knows she won't be able to do this for long. The battlefield is unstable, and every second increases the chance of a coordinated attack on them. She then retreats, pushing the cub with her body, never turning her back on the banquet that could save them. The smell of the meat lingers behind but stays embedded in her nostrils as a painful reminder of what she needs but cannot have. And so once again, hunger continues, not for lack of opportunity, but because in the savannah a child's life is worth more than any piece of meat. The sun is now high and merciless, pouring heat over the savannah as if it wanted to melt every shadow that still remains. The dry ground reflects the heat back, turning the air into a trembling, suffocating curtain. The lioness moves forward, but her gait is no longer the same. The steps, once firm and calculated, have become sluggish. Her front legs give way a little with each step on the hard ground. The cub follows, but the distance between them increases in small intervals. The difference between the strength that fades and the innocence that still believes the mother is infallible. She feels her body protest. The muscles in her legs throb, Her vision blurs in brief oscillations, and her dry tongue no longer moistens her snout. A constant buzzing fills her ears, a mixture of extreme fatigue and oppressive heat. With each breath, the air enters hot and leaves heavy, as if carrying with it the little energy that remains. Still, she keeps going, because stopping would mean admitting that hunger has won. But the Savannah does not forgive weakness. A poorly positioned stone under her front paw makes her body give way, and she falls to her side, raising a small whirlwind of dust that settles over her fur. The cub, startled, runs to her and tries to push her with his head, letting out small sounds full of panic. The lioness closes her eyes for a moment, feeling the dangerous temptation to stay there, motionless, letting her body rest. However, something inside her still pulses with strength. It's not hunger, it's not fear, it's pure instinct. Perhaps the memory of other cubs lost to predators or to the drought. The certainty that if she doesn't get up now, she will never get up again. With an effort that makes her muscles tremble, she plants her front paw on the ground, lifts her head, and, little by little, rises. Her legs don't respond immediately, but she persists, staggers, until she's standing again. The cub approaches and nudges his snout against hers, as if the contact were a link that restores her strength. She breathes deeply, and the air, though hot, seems to carry a little life. The march begins again, slow but firm. With each step, she imprints on her own body the lesson all mothers in the Savannah know. Strength is not in the absence of falls, but in the ability to rise when there is nothing left to give. The decision first emerges as a whisper, then grows into a silent roar within her. She needs to go back. The scent of the contested carcass still lingers in her memory, and hunger, now mixed with weakness, threatens not only her strength, but her ability to protect the cub. She knows she can't maintain this cycle for much longer. The body cries for food, and the Savannah offers no second chances to those who wait too long. The dilemma is brutal. To reach the carcass, she'll have to leave the cub hidden alone, exposed to any predator, or even the fatal curiosity of other creatures. But taking him along is impossible. He wouldn't survive the journey, and worse, he would become an obvious target in the territory overrun by scavengers. The choice is cruel but inevitable. She finds a low, dry bush with twisted branches, enough to break the silhouette of the little one from a distance. With her snout, she pushes the cub inside, quickly licking his head in a gesture that is both a farewell and a promise. She sets off with quickened steps, ignoring the pains that throb in her paws and flank. The heat of the day is like an extra enemy, draining every last bit of energy she has left. The way back seems shorter, perhaps because hunger speeds up her perception of space. In the distance, the sound of wings and the hurried scratching of claws against bones reveal that the carcass is still there, but the feast continues alive with disputes. As she approaches, the scene is almost identical to the one she left. Vultures pushing each other, jackals jumping and retreating, and the body of the gnu now even more consumed, offering smaller and smaller pieces of meat. One of the jackals sees her and retreats with a growl, but others aren't intimidated. Aware that her weakness may make her less dangerous than she seems, the lioness advances, not with the speed of a hunt, but with the silent authority of one who is willing to fight for the right to eat. The first vultures flap their wings and move away, opening enough space for her to stick her head into the side of the dead animal. The smell is suffocating, a heavy blow of old blood and decay, but to her it is food. The taste of the meat floods her mouth, and the sensation of chewing after so long without hunting is almost painful, as if her body had forgotten what to do. But with each bite, energy begins to return, though timidly. Still, the tension remains. Time is short, and every bite is watched by eyes waiting for the moment to reclaim the feast. She knows she can't linger. She needs to get back to the cub before danger finds him, so she swallows quickly, ignores the discomfort of her unaccustomed stomach, and retreats, already turning her body toward the return path. The run back will be shorter but no less urgent. Now she carries the fuel to continue, and in her mind the fear of what she might find. Her mouth still carries the metallic taste of the meat when the wind shifts and brings from afar a sound that freezes her entire body. A weak, trembling mew filled with urgency. It's the cub. The call cuts through the distance like an arrow, piercing the hum of hunger and erasing any thoughts of continuing to eat. She freezes, teeth still clenched around a piece of meat, and the maternal instinct explodes like thunder inside her. The chewing stops, and her heart races. In any other situation, she would stay until the last second, savoring every bite, replenishing her strength before facing the journey back. But that sound is not just a plea. It is a warning. Something is wrong. The mews come interspersed with short silences, as if the little one is trying to move or hide. The savannah doesn't give warnings in vain. When a cub calls like that, it's because danger is already near. She drops the piece of meat as if it were poison and rushes back, pulling away from the carcass. The jackals, seeing the gap, hurry back to the feast, but she no longer sees or hears. The body, reinvigorated only by the little it has eaten, obeys a single command: run. Her paws strike the dry ground with renewed force, and each breath is a burst of fire that fuels the rhythm of the run. The dry landscape blurs around her. She doesn't count the meters. She just cuts the distance between her and the cub. Another call echoes, this time louder, and her chest tightens. She imagines the hyenas that lurked during the night, a bolder jackal, or even a solitary predator that found an easy prey. With each step, her mind constructs scenarios she refuses to accept as truth. The world boils down to 2 points: where she is and where he must be. The bush where she left him appears ahead, small, almost invisible in the vastness of the savannah. The silence now is worse than the call. She slows down just enough to approach cautiously, her senses on high alert. A quick movement between the leaves makes her jump, ready to attack, but what she finds is the cub, standing but wobbling, his eyes heavy and his body trembling, as if hunger and heat had finally joined forces to bring him down. She presses her snout against his, and the little one tries to suckle right there without waiting for her to lie down. It is in this moment that the realization hits her hard. Eating now is vital to feed him, but if she doesn't act quickly to hydrate and protect him, the following minutes could decide everything. The dilemma returns, bigger and more cruel. The meat waiting for her at the carcass is the only way to save both, but leaving him again could be the final risk. The world contracts to fit within the interval between 2 heartbeats. The cub, leaning against her, trembling, with wide eyes and weakening legs, is a clear warning. There is no more room for waiting. The lioness feels the warm, sweet breath of the little one, a sign that his body is already burning through its last reserves. She knows, not because she learned, but because life itself has taught her, that if he falls now, he won't have the strength to get up. The dilemma is sharp as claws. Stay and protect him, watching him wither away, or leave him hidden once more, running to the carcass to bring back the energy that might save him. But this time, there is no hesitation. The decision strikes like lightning. She will go, and quickly. She pushes the cub under the dry bush, licking his face in a gesture that is both a promise and a silent order for him to stay still. Then, without looking back, she darts off. The body, though exhausted, responds as if fear were fuel. Her paws strike the ground violently, raising small clouds of dust that dissolve in the hot air. The wind cuts through her ears, and each breath is a dry blow that tears at her parched throat. She no longer thinks of predators, jackals, or birds, only of the meat she needs to reach and the time she must crush. The savannah seems to stretch out, distorted by urgency, every stone and branch becoming personal obstacles against her mission. In the distance, the banquet still pulses, the harsh sound of beaks striking bones, the snap of tendons being torn. She throws herself into the dispute like a storm that arrives without warning, opening space with quick bites and thrusts. It's not the meal of a triumphant huntress, but that of a desperate mother. She bites off large chunks, just enough to swallow without chewing, forcing her stomach to take it in faster than it would like. The taste no longer matters, nor the quality of the meat. Each bite is just another step against the death that lurks for the cub. When she feels she has enough to at least produce milk, she pulls back abruptly. The sound of wings and growls fills the space she leaves, but the feast no longer interests her. The real race begins now, getting back before the little one falls to the wrong side of the invisible line that separates life from death. The way back is an even more intense blur. She can hardly feel the weight of her own body, only the rapid beating of her heart and the fixed image of the cub under the bush. Each leap is a denial of the idea of loss, each breath a silent scream against time. When the bush finally appears on the horizon, she doesn't slow down. She dives headfirst into the thin shadow, ready to find him and offer what she's managed to tear from the savannah. The dry bush appears like a mirage, and for a moment, The lioness' heart tightens, fearing she'll find only silence. But then a slight movement between the branches reveals the cub, lying, breathing short, eyes half closed. She approaches and lies immediately beside him, enveloping him with her body to pass the little heat she still has left. The little one, almost reflexively, seeks her belly. She remains still, letting him find his way as her body begins to work urgently to turn the freshly devoured meat into milk. The process is painful. The stomach, empty for so long, contracts against the new load, and the milk takes time to come down. Each attempt from the cub to suckle seems to pull away a little of the strength she just regained. Still, she doesn't push him away. Her eyes remain fixed on the horizon, alert for any sign of movement. But inside her, the only focus is feeding that small body before it gives in completely. Little by little, the rhythm of the suckling changes. The cub now drinks more forcefully, and a thread of life seems to return to his fragile muscles. He lets out a low sound, almost of satisfaction, and curls more against his mother's belly. The lioness, exhausted, closes her eyes for a moment, but instinct won't let her fall asleep. She knows the fight isn't over. The day will still bring heat, predators, and the same relentless search for food. However, in this moment, under the vast sky of the savannah, she finds a small victory. There are no spectators, no triumphant roars, only the steady breathing of a cub who is still alive because she decided to give everything she had, even what she didn't have. It's an invisible sacrifice, an act that no one will see, that will leave no marks except for the exhaustion in her body. But it is also the essence of what it means to be a mother in nature, to fight until there is nothing left, because in the end, life itself has no value if it doesn't serve to keep another breathing. The light breeze that blows carries the distant smell of dust and danger, reminding her that tomorrow, everything will begin again. But for now, she just presses her snout against the cub's, feeling the warmth that begins to pulse back in him, and allows herself to breathe deeply, as one who knows she has won at least this battle, even if no one besides her and the little one will know.